All right, in today's video build guide, I'm gonna be showing you exactly how to install the belt drive conversion kit for the stock fork using the Flipsky 7070 and Charged Up 3D budget brushless motors. So in your belt drive conversion kit, you're of course gonna get your Totems motor mount with the adjustable adapter plate. You can see that we use this slotted design. This allows us to rotate to adjust our belt tension. You of course have the mounting bolts with the lock washers on the top. We have the 520 millimeter belt. We have the 200x 50 millimeter belt drive rim with the pulley built into the rim itself. We have the brand new axle bolt with the custom different size spacers. It's extremely important to note that they are different size. So one is going to go on the brake disc or threaded side, as well as one is going to go on the belt drive side. We also have the mounting hardware for mounting our motor to the adapter plate. We have the 15 tooth belt drive sprocket, and we have the one zip tie so that we can make sure to cable manage everything properly. Now to begin, we need to take our stock fork, get it completely disassembled, and make sure to remove the chain tensioner from the fork itself. Now the wiring is going to be a little bit different if you're using the charged up motor versus the Flipsky motor. You can see that the cables are much longer on the Flipsky. We're going to start by showing you how to assemble it on the Flipsky motor. Now what we're going to need to do to be able to get the cables going through the stock hole on the fork, we're going to need to take the heat shrink, grab it, and pull it down all the way so it's like this on the motor itself. This will allow us to route everything nice and clean. We're then going to take our motor mount. We don't have to remove the plate itself. All we need to do is take the cables. We're going to slide them through the hole on the top, and then we're going to kind of bend the cables a little bit and stick the motor shaft right through the hole on the motor mount. Now this part is going to be extremely important. We want to make sure that we route all the bolts into the motor mount nice and clean so we don't strip anything. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab our motor mount bolts. We're going to take an Allen key, and we are going to slowly make sure to insert every single motor mount bolt, not tightening anything down all the way yet. We just want to make sure that we get everything lined up. That way nothing gets stripped. And then after every bolt is in there, then we can go ahead, start tightening them down in a cross pattern. That means 1, 1, 1, 1. Just snugging them up first. And then we can go ahead and tighten them down a little bit harder. You can see motor's on there. Now we're going to take our zip tie. I like to run it through the bottom instead. We're going to insert one of them through this side. And because we're using the Flipsky motor, we're going to be using these ones. For the charged up motor, we're going to be using these ones, but we'll go over that in a little bit. And we're going to tighten the zip tie back down. Grab some snippers. Be very careful not to get the motor wires. And we're almost done assembling the motor. All we need to do is put on the motor sprocket. And now it's very important with the D shaft type of motor, a D shaft looks like this. You can see that there is this slotted portion. We're gonna put the longer set screw on the D shaft part of the motor. If we unscrew the set screws inside of the motor pulley, we can see that one of them is longer than the other. So we're gonna take the longer one. We're going to insert that back in first and be very careful not to strip your motor pulley. We're going to put that on our motor mount, and we're just going to tighten that just a little bit on the D shaft portion. Then we're going to grab the other set screw, and we are going to insert that on the other set screw hole. And again, be very careful. It's really easy to strip these, so just go extremely slow, make sure that it catches fully. We'll go ahead and adjust the spacing when it's in the fork, but as you can see, we have a fully assembled motor mount. Now I'm going to show you how to do the same exact thing using the charged up motor. All right, before we begin putting the charged up motor onto the motor mount, we're going to first need to connect the wires up. So we'll go ahead. Obviously, we're not going to do yellow to blue. We're going to do yellow to yellow, blue to blue, green to green. Going to go ahead, do our Hall sensor, and then it's going to be a little bit different to do it with the charged up motor. We're going to make sure that the wires are actually coming out sideways. So we're gonna set it down like this. So we wanna make sure it's coming out of the TT side, and we're gonna go do the same thing, and we're gonna insert each individual motor screw, making sure to be very careful and not stripping the motor itself. And then we're gonna tighten them down in a cross pattern again. Snug them up first, then after they are all snug, we can go ahead and crank it down. Now, to do the cable management, we are going to take the cables and we are first gonna route them like this. Now, the benefit to having all the cables completely be separate than the cables coming out of the fork is that if you damage any of these cables, instead of having to replace the whole motor, you just replace the cable itself that actually got damaged. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna grab our other zip tie and we are gonna zip tie the wires so they are in this position. We're gonna route it through one of the holes there, one of the holes here. Maybe a little bit hard to see, but if you look at the top, we're gonna be using these holes and not these holes like we did the Flipsky motor. And we are going to tie those down and make sure they are secure. After they're secure, we can take our snippers, snip those off, and then we can take our cables and route them through the hole on the motor mount. So when all is said and done, you want it to look something like this. And you can see they're coming out the top. And now we can go ahead and put on our motor sprocket. So to put on the motor sprocket, it is going to be the same exact way for the Flipsky motor. We are going to remove the set screws, both of the set screws, and we are going to figure out which set screw is the longest. We can see that this set screw is longer than this set screw. So we're going to take that set screw first, the longer set screw. We're going to very carefully insert it into the motor pulley, making sure not to strip. If it feels like it's tight going in, undo it and go again. And we're gonna put that on the D shaft portion of the motor. We'll insert that onto the motor shaft. We'll tighten that down just a little bit, not crank it, just enough to hold it into place. We'll grab the other set screw and insert it into the other set screw hole. Again, very carefully, make sure not to strip it. And now we can see we have this motor set up and both are ready to install into the fork. Now to install it onto the fork, we're gonna need our rim, we're gonna need our axle bolt, the axle bolt that came with the kit, our belt, and we are going to need to remove these screws from the top of the motor. Make sure to keep the lock washers together. Then we can take our fork and very carefully, we are going to slide the motor wires in. Now, another very important part of this is that we want the motor shaft facing away from the chain tensioner. We're actually gonna install this backwards when compared to the stock motor. And the reason that we can do that is because we can easily, inside of the VESC app or whatever controller app you're using, you can reverse the motor. So we are going to insert the Hall sensor cable first through the top of the fork, and then insert each phase wire through the top of the fork as well. They should slide right in. And as we move the motor on, we're gonna pull the cables tight. You can see it lines up perfect. And then because we actually thread the holes, we can easily just hand tighten each bolt into place, lining up perfectly to the stock motor mount holes. And then before we do anything else, we're gonna make sure that we go ahead and crank each of these bolts down. Again, we're gonna start by tightening each one just to snug it up. And then after they are all snugged up, we're gonna go ahead and crank each one down in a cross pattern. Now we have the motor on. Remember, you need to have the motor pulley on because if you don't put it on before this step, then you won't be able to get it on after. Now to install the charged up motor, it is going to be very much the same way, except these cables are going to be a little bit thicker to handle a little bit more power. So we are going to be very, very careful when inserting this through the stock hole. It will still fit, but we need to make sure that we do every single one by one. We need to be extremely careful and wary of this Hall sensor cable, as we don't want to scratch it against the fork hole. So again, we're gonna do every single one by one, making sure pull it out the other side. And you're gonna see it's gonna be the tightest, of course, with the last phase wire. So we're gonna very carefully go through and just slowly pull it all the way tight. Gonna make sure that we take off each one of these motor mount bolts before we can continue. And again, keep the lock washers all together, as that will prevent the motor from coming loose, or the motor mount from coming loose. And then we're gonna make sure that when we pull the motor in, that it is going to be the opposite side, that the motor shaft is the opposite side of the chain tensioner. And this is really gonna be the part where you wanna be careful of the motor wires. So very slowly, just kind of pull every single one of them. Just nice and careful until everything's tight. Then we're gonna hold the fork straight up, and we can go ahead and start hand tightening all of the motor mount bolts. It's really nice having the threaded plate because you don't have to worry about putting a nut on the other side of the motor mount. And then be very careful not to strip anything. We can see nothing is catching, and we're gonna do a cross pattern on this as well. So again, cross pattern means just tighten this one, or snug this one, snug this one. We'll snug this one up, cross again, snug this one up. And then we can go ahead and tighten every single one of those down. Then we can see our cable management. Just do a little check, make sure all the cables are pulled tight. We can see that with this setup, you have no worries with the cables coming into contact with the outrunner motor. And we can go ahead and we can put on our axle bolt, our belt, and get the rest of the belt drive system set up. So now we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna install the belt, the rim, and the axle bolt, and then we're gonna get our tension set up right. But first, before we do anything, we're gonna insert the belt past the motor shaft. Just kind of hang it like that. We're gonna grab our axle bolt with the 2 different size spacers. Just remember that. Make sure you keep all of the washers and lock washers. And then we're gonna note what is the longer axle bolt spacer. So we can see that the longer one is this one, and that is gonna go on our belt drive side. So let's take the axle, insert it right there. Take the axle bolt spacer. Be careful not to knock your fork over. Insert it just a little bit just to keep everything there. We're gonna throw in our other spacer and then slide everything through. Washer, lock washer, axle bolt nut, and then we can go ahead and crank down our axle bolt nut. These are 16 millimeters. So you'll need a 16 millimeter wrench or socket. We can see that's tight. Everything's spinning nice and free. Now, before we tighten down the set screws, we need to see exactly where the spacing would line up. So we're just gonna go ahead, we're gonna make sure to push the belt all the way over so it's touching the actual kind of lip right here. And we can see exactly where this belt pulley wants to line up. We can see that it wants to line up almost at the end, and that gives us good clearance so it's not touching anything. So now we can take the belt off. We're gonna keep a mental note of exactly where this sprocket was, kind of right there at the end. And we are gonna go ahead, we're gonna tighten down one of those set screws, kind of hold it into place, move the sprocket where it lines up good. That's usually leaving like a millimeter or 2 from the very end of the shaft. And now we have one tight, we're gonna take the other one out, and we're gonna add some red Loctite to this. It's extremely important that you add red Loctite to this set screw because you do not want your sprocket coming loose when you're riding at 25, 30, 35 miles an hour. So I have always had the best luck with using Loctite 272. So we're gonna go ahead and put a Nice big blob on that. We're gonna insert that back into, being extremely careful not to strip. We're gonna make sure to tighten that down pretty good. I, to be honest, recommend using one of these screwdrivers with a hex drive set. That at least allows me to get a little more leverage on this set screw. And then we're gonna spin the motor, and we're gonna do the same exact thing for that first set screw that we already tightened down. Now that that other set screw is tightened down, it kind of holds it into place so that we can do this other one. So we'll go ahead, we'll do this one, put a nice big blob on that. Go ahead and crank this one down as well. Now we can go ahead, we can put our belt back on. I would actually make sure to loosen down your tension bolts. We can adjust later. I actually recommend adjusting it when it's on the cart. And we can just kind of like set these down just so the motor's not moving. Oh, let me tighten it. Just a little bit. We can go ahead and finalize the tension when it's on the cart, because that is the easiest way to do it. But as you can see, we have a full fork set up, ready to go, ready to install. So go ahead and install this, and I'll show you how to adjust your tension when it's on the cart. Now that it's on the cart, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna loosen down these bolts. You don't have to loosen them too much, just a little bit, just so the motor can move freely. And now we can see that we can move the motor up or down. Now we added this little pin that allows you to kind of pull it with your finger so you can set it. So the way that I actually like setting the tension is using that pin and pulling it, but just kind of using it to hold it in place. And then I can go ahead and tighten that slotted one down. Now we can see that's really, really good tension. This is about the tension that you want to have. You do not want it too tight or too loose. You don't want it too loose where it's skipping teeth, and you don't want it too tight where it's preventing the motor from spinning. Now that we have this one tight, we can go ahead and we can crank this one down. This just acts as another little safety pin to keep it locked in place. And I'm just gonna do one more tighten on this one, and we can see, let's turn the cart on, and we will spin it up and see how it sounds. Sounds super smooth. Well, that is the full assembly and adjustment guide for your brand new belt drive conversion kit. If you guys have any questions, shoot us an email or give us a phone call. We're more than happy to help out. As always, have fun, stay safe ripping.